Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with Waylon Lewis. This is our little video series that we share through Elephant. And as always, you can find many more videos on SoundCloud and youtube.com/Waylon H. Lewis. Today we want to honor 9/11, and we want to honor it in a appropriate way. We're dedicated to the mindful life. So what is a mindful take on 9/11? We all in America and many people around the world remember exactly where we were on 9/11. I was up at Chautauqua. I was living in a little cottage up there. It was maybe 600 square feet, super small, up at the top of Boulder, Colorado, right below these huge mountains. And I walked outside of my house on my way to work. I worked at Shambhala Mountain Center in our offices down here in marketing and program development and all that. And I walked out and I ran into this guy, Ray, who was the maintenance guy. He had a beard and a cap on, and he said, he looked kind of stunned, like he wasn't excited, but he was actually just stunned. And he said, "Oh, a plane just flew into one of the World Trade Center towers." And I was like, wow, But our world is full of crazy headlines, and I didn't really think much more about it. And I drove to work and got there. And when I got there, instead of everyone working, they were huddled around a laptop. And the energy was completely different. In the time I had driven from Chautauqua to work, the second one had hit. And at that point, everyone realized this wasn't some sort of freak accident, but this was deliberate, and it was terrorism. So, we spent the rest of the day not working. We all gathered in a bar or breakfast place or something and watched the TV, and we're just stunned and just talking. And we went to the Boulder bookstore and bought a bunch of books on Islam and just wanted to learn and kind of find ground in some way. And I remember in the weeks after that, everyone put American flags on their stores, and there was this real sense of sort of grief and solidarity. It was almost beautiful. Really, people all over the world came together, and the flag at that point did not represent patriotism or aggression or anything. It represented that sort of sense of sadness and love of our greatest ideals, which are freedom and taking care of our Commonwealth, our people. And it was beautiful. And I remember being really kind of disgusted and disappointed in my Buddhist community here. They declined to put the sort of "We Are United," whatever it said, flag on the front door. I really felt like it was separating ourselves from, what everyone was going through, and that was chicken shit and cowardly. And then there was this growing sense that George Bush, our president, was going to strike back, and the grief faded into kind of back into politics. So we were no longer all united, and some people hated the idea that we were going to strike back, and some people were rah-rah about it and wanted to go to war and find these terrorists themselves. I remember Brad Pitt or someone on the Late Night with David Letterman saying, "Sign me up, I'm in, I'm going, I'm going to go kill some god." Everyone had their own ways of dealing with it. But it was a sad transition. That first couple weeks, though, was beautiful, and I think that's the fundamental message of Buddhism, is that when tragedy strikes, there's a tendency to strike back or to want to do something about it. But if you can really just rest there with that sense of grief or sadness, and that sadness can be at a loss of a loved one, like at a funeral, then you can eventually begin to heal and feel a sense of appreciation and kind of tender joy in the midst of that sadness. And that's why at the best, like Irish wakes or whatever, you'll see a lot of celebration of someone's life, not just grief. People might be wearing black, but they'll also be, drinking and celebrating and toasting and eulogizing the loved one. And you can do that on a national level or an international level, hopefully. Allen Ginsberg and Chogyam Trungpa, Buddhist teacher, Ginsberg the poet, would often remind people that aggression equals aggression. Ginsberg was this amazing activist, aside from being a poet. He was probably our leading activist of, a couple decades there. The fundamental phrase, aggression creates further aggression, or aggression equals aggression, is super important. So if someone's aggressive toward you and you're aggressive back, the aggression becomes like this hot potato that in getting passed back and forth, it just builds up and gets bigger and bigger. And if we want a peaceful world for our children to live in, it may sound obvious, but obviously it isn't obvious to our leaders. We need to kind of take some blame, sit on that aggression, and find a way not to strike back, but to heal. So Peace Corps is, I think, a powerful example of that. Silver lining of 9/11, which we saw, is I had many friends who were working jobs that they didn't really care about. And when 9/11 happened, they were like, I need to find meaning. I need to give back. I need to create peace. And they went out and became entrepreneurs or tried to find their way to create a better world. So there's a silver lining to tragedies that a lot of people kind of wake up and think, what is important to me? I think the same thing is when a loved one passes away, you have this moment of saying, wow, death actually does happen. And what am I doing with my life to be of benefit? And that fundamentally is the Bodhisattva vow, but it's not owned by Buddhism. Certainly, everyone wants to be of benefit to the world. The sad thing about 9/11, of course, is that 3,000 civilians, innocents, died, and that is, to me, the definition of terrorism: when civilians of any country are killed in a military action. So, obviously, the U.S. is complicit in a lot of aggression around the world, and we need to really appreciate that 3,000 people are dying every single day of random diseases, and wherever innocents and civilians are dying, we need to stop that, and try and create a world that we all, children can feel safe in. We're seeing a lot of war right now in the Ukraine and Palestine and Israel. So I think that's it. I think the fundamental lesson of 9/11 is, if we can practice with it, really just stay in that brokenheartedness and find a way not to, obviously you have to, strike at aggression sometimes. If the terrorists are being aggressive, you have to take them out sometimes. But overall, we need to limit our aggression as much as possible and try and create peace. So whenever sadness happens in your life, if it's sadness, if it's death, if it's running over a squirrel with your car, take a moment to actually just honor that loss and feel that sadness before going on and being speedy. And I think that was what was so powerful and beautiful and lasting about 9/11, is that we saw a world come together. So thank you so much.